1. I work at a liquor store. We have a customer, an old woman who is probably over 85 years old. She often forgets her PIN, so we have it noted down just in case she loses it. The other day, she was inside my store, and she was with another woman, probably in her 70s. She was there to help her pick up the wine she was going to buy, etc. When they were going to pay, the old woman asked me nicely if I could type her PIN code in for her, so I did. They then walked to the grocery store, which is right beside the store I work for. After a while, the woman who helped this old lady came back and said that the poor lady couldn't remember her PIN at the grocery store. So I told that woman the PIN because I was stressed I was working alone. And this is a woman who often shops at my store, and she seemed like a lovely and nice lady. Plus, I wanted to help that old lady because the queue was getting longer in the grocery store. And I know these things stress her out. So, stupid as it sounds, I gave the PIN to the other lady who was there to help. After some minutes, one of the workers at the grocery store came to me and said, "I know you gave her the PIN, please don't do that. She scammed her before. She and her husband are alcoholics, which is probably why they've been scamming before." When she said that, I was absolutely shocked and said, "What, really? I never thought about that because she seems so sweet and nice. And she always said she's buying that bottle of vodka for her husband." She then replied, "Well, you wouldn't know anything about that. I'm just scared she's gonna get scammed again. That's why I'm telling you this." And now I feel freaking horrible. I wouldn't give the PIN to a random person, but this woman I gave it to just seemed like a nice lady. We have talked a lot about anything for several years now, while she's been shopping at my store. I know that every once in a while she's buying vodka for her husband. I actually believed her when she said that the bottle was for her husband, and she didn't seem like an alcoholic. At all. Believe me, I can tell he was drinking a lot after all these years. Sometimes her husband is with her at the store, and I can clearly tell he is an alcoholic. Now I'm freaking out because I am so afraid that poor old lady is gonna get scammed just because of me. I am so stupid, I know that. If I wasn't working alone at the store, I would probably have went to the grocery store to help her with paying. I work at a small place where everybody knows everybody, so I will probably see this woman again soon. I'm probably going to stand behind her to see if she's using the PIN code of that old lady. But yes, I'm freaking out now. I just see the good sides in everyone, and trust them too easily. Especially when we've been talking a lot about everything, and now I just want to go and cry in a corner. Hellfreezer's note. I know you feel like you were helping, but whenever I worked retail, I had a policy of if someone asked me to put their PIN in for them, refusing to do it, I would talk them through it, I would explain how the PIN pad worked, but I would never ever take someone's PIN because it's not my responsibility to know that. That's meant to be a secret. Your shop definitely shouldn't have it written down. Throw that away. It's a security thing. If anything happens to her money, you guys are the ones who are going to get sued for it. But what's done is done now. Really, the responsibility for her PIN number is on your customer. It's on the old lady to manage. I would, if I were you, refuse in future to take anything to do with it and tell them it's a security thing, which it is. 2. This one is a doozy. To start, this customer comes in about 5 minutes or less before we're closing. He's with his daughter, and they only order a milkshake. The receipt for the order printed twice, so I crumpled up the other one and put it in my pocket to throw away. For some context, the receipt machines at my work print twice sometimes because that's just how they are. Both receipts are identical. The only reason why I keep the second one consistently is because people don't want two identical receipts. So I usually collect them in my pocket and then throw them away all at once when I get the chance. Also, this is fast food, by the way. They're waiting around for their shake when suddenly the dad walks up to me and leans in and asks me something like, "What are you doing with those receipts in your pocket?" I just thought he was curious or something, so I told him I keep them and then throw them away later because they're duplicates. That's when he starts getting all suspicious and asking me to see them. Specifically the one for the guy who ordered a shake before him. So I'm digging through my pockets and can't find it. He starts getting angry but not yelling. He keeps repeating that I'm not considering how it looks to the customer, that I put the secondary reprints in my pocket. He said that the customer doesn't know what's on the second receipt, so this is basically suspicious and wrong behavior. If you haven't realized yet, he basically thought I was saving these receipts to use the last 4 digits of the card numbers to steal or something. Newsflash: the reason that no one ever sees the second receipts is because they tell me to throw them away, or don't take them because they don't want extra identical receipts. He demands that I go get my manager. I keep apologizing and saying sorry, and that I didn't realize how it looked for the customer. He doesn't give up, so I go get my manager. Mind you, I was on the verge of crying because this man was accusing me of something I never did right before closing. Not to mention, he was at least 50, while I'm much younger and he had some height on me. Anyways, I walk to the back to tell my manager the situation. I'm barely choking out the words so that I don't start sobbing. My other manager comes up to the front and asks what the problem is. The man starts saying exactly what he said to me. So my manager explains that we collect them in our pockets to discard them after because there's no garbage under the registers, so we can't just walk away from the customers to throw them away in the middle of them paying. The man just keeps repeating that neither of us understand how this looks to the customer. So my boss almost snaps at him a little and tells him that he's trying to explain to him, but the man kept interrupting. The man also kept saying that it was nothing against me personally, and that I was a nice young person who took their order. Felt pretty personal, though. I didn't catch most of what they were saying back and forth because I was too focused on not sobbing. My manager defended me, and the man must have sensed that he wasn't going to win this argument. Long story short, he kinda just left after berating me and indirectly accusing me of credit card theft for like 5 minutes. He said something like "have a good night" in a snappy voice and left. My co-workers and I all just looked at each other in shock because of what just happened. Hellfreezer's note: this is something that retail workers especially need to learn. Whenever a customer is angry, don't apologize to them. Don't say you're sorry, because you're just going to justify their anger. No matter how stupid it was, like very stupid in this case. Unless you have genuinely messed up, don't ever let the words "I'm sorry" or "I apologize" leave your lips. It just makes these morons think that you are guilty of something when you definitely aren't. Fact of the matter is, in some places, the printers will print out 2 versions of a receipt. There's a customer copy and a copy that gets saved for the till sometimes, depending on the place. Is he suspicious of them too? And why, oh why, if he thinks you're up to nefarious activity, did he want to see the receipt of another customer? That's very suspicious behavior. Anyway, I hope the man never darkens your door again, and that his milkshakes were delicious, because maybe it would have brightened his mood. 3. This happened a few days ago, so it's still fresh in my memory. I'm lucky enough not to have a lot of these stories, but this encounter stuck out to me because of how sudden and jarring it was. Context: I, 24, big ender and accepting any pronouns. Though I present as female, given my larger chest that I have no desire to get rid of. Work at TJ Maxx, home goods combo store, and my main job is either unpacking boxes in the back or retrieving the trolleys from the corrals. On occasion, however, if there are no boxes to be processed and it's too hot to get trolleys, I get very easily overheated, and my managers are more than all right with me helping out in other areas when it's hot. I'll usually take the bins of pet stuff from the back room and one at a time go through each bin, putting toys and treats on the hooks and laying out the pet beds and such. Because I don't want to block traffic too much, and because there are 3 or 4 aisles total that make up the department, requiring me to move back and forth a lot anyway, I don't like to roll the bins into the aisles themselves, and instead keep them under one of the tables we have on display, or otherwise out of the way if the tables get sold. But generally, when I'm working the pet department, I'm doing a lot of back and forth through the aisles, and I acknowledge that traffic can be high sometimes. So I always preface my movements with a polite, "Sorry, excuse me, pardon me," etc. If I ever find that I have to accommodate shoppers, and 99% of the time they're more than happy to step off to the side, often apologizing in turn, to which I'll reply that it's no problem, I'll only be a sec. I've never had any issues with this before, as I'm typically a very non-confrontational person, and am generally easy to get along with unless you attack me personally. I was putting away some beds and came around the corner to head back to the bin to grab more stuff to put out. And I see this person, our entitled lady, with her cart in the dead center of the aisle, perpendicular to another aisle, therefore blocking the entire T-section that just so happened to be the center point of my traffic. She's sitting on her phone, and I assumed she just stopped for a moment to send a quick text, so I politely wait behind her for a minute or two, to give her time to finish her text and move on. After waiting for what seemed like a reasonable amount of time, I cleared my throat gently to get her attention, as I didn't just want to shove by her or tap her on the shoulder or anything, and our initial exchange goes something like this. "Excuse me, ma'am, may I please squeak by for just a second?" She glares at me and moves her cart approximately 2 inches. I wait for a moment, confused, but after I realize that she expects my round potato body to fit through that small gap, I figure if that's all she'll give me, she'll probably move soon anyway. So I press myself against the shelves to try and put as much distance between myself and her as possible, out of respect, and manage to squeeze by so I can get to my bin, apologizing profusely as I do so. I pick up a few random items from the bin, then turn back towards the aisles. She has returned her cart to the exact same position it was in before she moved to let me by, still sitting on her phone and not looking like she'll move anytime soon. I don't think much of it, and resolve to try and work around her as best I can, assuming it must be a pretty important text exchange for her to drop everything in the middle of the aisle to do so. Fortunately, there are other ways to get to the aisles I need, but at this point, other customers are glaring at her because they're trying to get from point A to point B using the most convenient route, which entitled lady has now been blocking for going on 10 minutes, and are being forced to maneuver their carts around the long way. Some of them give pointed stares to me as if saying that I was the employee, I should say something. So I try to approach the conversation gently and tactfully, standing a little off to the side of the entitled lady's cart and thinking through what I'm going to say to try and keep things civil and not cause a huge argument. I finally gather my courage and gently clear my throat again. "Excuse me." No sooner had the words left my mouth, I hadn't even begun to ask her to kindly move off to the side, where there was plenty of room, and she wouldn't have to leave the area or stop her texting for more than a second or two to slide over so people could still get by. I didn't get a chance to say any of that, as this woman suddenly snaps at me.
"I'm shopping, you're working, you're going to have to wait."
I just kind of stood there and stared at her in shock for a moment, unsure of what just happened. Her sudden hostility, when I had been nothing but polite, and in fact had barely begun to speak, just stunned me into silence. That, and the fact that I was trying to work out her logic that her texting or whatever was somehow more important than my job. Like, what? I stammered an apology, and hurriedly left the scene, feeling that all too familiar feeling well inside my chest. For some background, I have moderate PTSD from past experiences growing up, and being startled or screamed at is one of my triggers. So when people suddenly snap at me like this, it tends to send my body into flight mode, and sends my anxiety skyrocketing, which in turn causes me to cry as a fear response. Oddly enough, if I know I'm in the wrong, this response doesn't happen, as my brain is able to rationalize why I'm being yelled at. But when I'm scolded for apparently no reason, it does send me back to those darker days. I didn't want to burst into tears in the middle of the store, so when I felt myself start to lose control of my emotions, I retreated to the back room to give myself 5 minutes to calm down. When I returned to the sales floor, the first thing I noticed is the sounds of more yelling, but not at me. I return to my place in the pet department, but as I approach, I see the entitled lady having a heated argument with an older gentleman. My hero. I couldn't catch all their conversation, and some details are fuzzy, but it was going something like this.
"Spoiled youths who think they own the place."
"I watched the whole thing, madame, and that young lady was nothing but polite and respectful. It's you who thinks they own the place by parking your cart in the middle of the aisle. You're creating an obstacle, not only for the poor employee who's just doing her job, but for the other customers as well. If you just scoot over a smidge."
I'm busy. I don't have time for your nonsense. These people need to respect my space and move around me. There are other ways they can go.
At this point, I'm curious and also flattered that someone thought to speak up for me, so I kinda hide behind a shelf to watch all this go down. My hero continues.
You had no right to snap at her like that. I bet the poor thing is bawling her eyes out, wondering what she did to deserve it. Honestly, if that were me, I would have given you an earful, but since that kind young lady was too polite to do so herself, I'll give you one now. Move your damn cart out of the way.
Entitled Lady was getting red in the face and people were staring. I tried to make myself small so people wouldn't notice I was watching, but when one of my co-workers saw me, they walked over and asked if that was the lady who upset me. I told them it was, and they approached the arguing pair and instructed the lady to leave the store, or else they would call the police to have her removed. A mostly empty threat, but it was enough to make her walk off in a huff. I finally came out of hiding, and my hero saw me and asked if I was okay. I told him I was, and thanked him for standing up for me. He told me that after seeing a lot of young people being disrespectful in his time, it was refreshing to see one who had such good manners, and that he wasn't going to stand for the mistreatment of a rare soul like mine. He then politely excused himself and returned to his shopping. I went back to sorting the pet stuff with a spring in my step. Haven't seen the entitled lady again since then, but my hero does pop by once in a while, and will sometimes bring his dog, and is more than happy to let me pet her. 4. I really don't know why customers ask questions when their answer is posted right in front of the door where they walk in. For example, I get a lot of customers who ask if we offer cashback. On all the pin pads and the front of the door, it says, "We do not offer cashback," even though the pin pad will ask and allow customers to select how much cashback they want. When a customer clicks an amount they want, it puts me in an awkward position. There is a note directly next to the pin pad. "We don't offer cashback on a card." I just don't see how they could not see it. It makes me think they just clicked cashback on purpose just to mess with me. I mean, once the transaction is done, I kind of have no choice but to just give them the cashback they requested. I used to call them out for it and explain to them we do not offer it. But they'll either get confused or they'll argue, "Well, the pin pad asked if I wanted cashback." Well, I don't know. All I know is the store management doesn't want us associates handing customers cashback. I'm not trying to be a dick here, I just work here, and have to follow what the store manager says. Otherwise, I wouldn't care if customers want it. But why aren't people reading the store policy signs? Why just blindly come in and ask a question that was posted on the door in bold text? This infuriates me a lot. But I also can't be smart to them about it. The restroom policy is another big one. We have it posted that we do not have public restrooms, yet customers have the nerve to come up to me and ask. Even if they are on the verge of peeing themselves, I have to enforce that they can't use our employee restrooms whether they like it or not. I'm not trying to get in trouble or fired for letting customers use the bathrooms. Another store policy that customers fail to follow is we don't take $50s or $100 bills. This rule is posted noted on all the registers. After I ring up a customer's items, they try to buy with a $50 or $100 bill. Now, if they owe a bill that's the exact amount or maybe very close to that amount, I'll accept it. But if it's a small bill, I can't take it. Then customers will get mad and say, "This is all the money I have." Well, I don't know what to tell you, but I can't have people taking all of my cash out of my till. I don't know why these people even think they can just fork over a large bill and expect me to have like $95 change. We are not a big corporation like Walmart or Target. Go to a bank and exchange your money. Hellfreezer's note, I dealt with this all the time when I was in retail. Something they really didn't like reading was that we challenge 25, I think is what it said. Essentially, if we think you look under 25, doesn't matter if you think you do, but if we think you look 25 or under, we'll have to ask you for ID. Signs everywhere about it, and they always acted surprised. I suspect it's because a lot of what's in stores, the writing, things posted on the walls and the windows and such, is advertising. So they've probably just trained themselves to ignore most of that, and therefore the important things get ignored. Although your employers or whoever owns the business should definitely get onto IT and pony up a little cash and have them adjust the chip and pin so that it doesn't ask for cash back. It is doable, so I don't know why they haven't had it done. 5. My dad shared this short but amusing story with me. He used to work for the post office field maintenance. Much of what he did while employed involved trucking through about 5 counties, repairing P.O. boxes, towing broken-down delivery trucks, painting those big blue drop boxes, and other miscellaneous stuff. During one of the very rare times he was inside the home base building, a Karen stumped up to him. He could see her coming and could actually feel the tension coming off her, like she was about to explode. This wasn't just a Karen. This was a Karen on the edge of a full-on tantrum mode, and just needed that little nudge to set her off.
Do you work here?
They both know that he does. She just wants the confirmation so she can pitch her fit at some hapless employee. My dad decides she's not going to win this one. So Dad said, in the derpiest aw shucks accent he can dredge up,
Yes, ma'am, I'm the janitor.
He would have added an at the end, but figured this would be enough. It was. The Karen came to a full stop. She blinked, looked confused. Her inner wheels spun uselessly for about 10 seconds, and then said in a calmer, somewhat defeated tone,
Oh.
She spun on her heel, wind out of her sails, and went looking for someone else. Smirking, my dad went into the back and went about his day. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Fast Food and Retail, episode 209. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please hit the like button and share the video with friends and family. And if you want early access to the videos, support me on my Patreon page, which is linked for you in the description. If you do that, you get the videos all at once on a Monday. You'll also find links to the Hellfreezer Discord server, as well as the Hellfreezer merchandise store on Teespring. And if you'd like to leave a tip for today's video, you can do that by hitting the heart with a $sign underneath the video. Of course, none of that is required, but I very much appreciate the help if you choose to do so. Thank you kindly. Okay, I don't think we have any other bits and bobs today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, how do you like your eggs? You like them boiled, fried, mashed? Can you mash an egg? I guess a scrambled egg is technically a mashed egg. How do you like them prepared? What's your favorite way? I think mine is probably an omelette, or the omelette's cousin, quiche. I do like quiche. I just made myself hungry, and I don't have a quiche. I am going out grocery shopping later, so I might pick one up then. Actually, yeah, I might do that for dinner. Let me know what your answers are, along with any recipes you want to share, in a comment below. And before we go, let's have the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Lauren. And this was in relation to things you're surprised you forgot. I've forgotten a huge portion of my childhood. Sometimes I remember with perfect clarity. But when one of my sisters brings up something that sounds huge, I stare like a deer in the headlights. Fortunately, once they start elaborating, memories come flooding back. It's a relief to know that my synapses are only dusty, not totally fried. Oh, and I too always forget celebrities that have passed. And also think that some have passed, but they haven't. Oops. Thank you very much for your answer, Lauren. And with that, as the birds are chirping, in fact, I think one of my neighbors has a rooster or something because I heard earlier. That's weird. At least in a neighborhood like this, that's weird. Anyway, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.